Paula.
Hey there.
And now we see a Nell.
Yes, I'm
Yep.
here.
Is Ken on yet?
Nope.
Do we have Ken Koenig? Not yet.
Not yet. I don't see him.
Well, he's a right on the minute person, and I told him, you know, there'd be a welcome, and then he'd be on. So he said, all right. So he would be on at 11:30. So I think he'll be here right on time.
And
So I see Julie and Christy joined us.
Haven't heard them say anything yet.
Anne, can you hear me?
Christy, you're muted, and Julie, you're muted.
Anne,
Hi,
Stewart.
good morning. I'm with Representative Hunter's office. I'm Chrissy. I'm Todd's district director.
I'm muted.
Oh, great.
I'm sorry, you said you were Angie? Who did you say you are?
I wish I was Angie. No, she's the chief of staff. I'm district director, Chrissy.
Oh, that's terrific. Okay.
No, on the little arrow.
Good morning, everyone. I see the closed captions available. That's awesome. Anel and team.
That's your microphone up there.
Yes, we're really glad to have that.
That is so wonderful. Thank you.
And I sent out an email to posted on their website to the Hard of Hearing Center to let them know if any of their clients would wish to join the League of Women Voters, that we're seeking to diversify, and that closed captioning is available should they want to attend these meetings. So we'll see if we get a response.
That's wonderful. Yeah, there's some people down there who could benefit from being part of this. So I'm glad you got that done. You bet.
Yep.
So Ann, since you can't see the screen of who joined us, do you want people to announce themselves, or do you want us to tell you who's added on?
Yes, that would be a great thing. I mean, I won't be writing them down, but I need to know when our speaker gets here, and we have only a minute or two. So
Okay,
ideally, we'll hear his voice.
Sandra's here, Lisa's here, Jim Klein is here. Everyone else we've already mentioned. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Jim.
You're muted.
Anne,
Yes.
I need just a couple of minutes when we get started. I want to explain to everyone about closed captioning
Okay.
and how to disappear before we start the meeting.
Okay.
And
Good.
how to put some put questions in chat. So if you'll
Great.
give a few minutes.
And Ken just joined us.
Okay.
Ken Koenig.
He's here. I just saw his face a second ago.
Oh, great.
Now they went black. I don't know where you. Oh, there you are. He's on
Ken.
my screen. He's on the far left. You're muted, Ken.
Ken, are you tuned in now?
He's muted. Unmute yourself, Ken. He's still muted.
I can unmute him if you'll give me just a second.
Great. Great.
Ruth just joined us. Amy just joined us.
Great.
Colleen Johnson just joined us. Emily Northrop just joined us.
Excellent.
Okay, I guess I'm unmuted.
Now you're good.
Ken, this is wonderful to have you with us. Just stay unmuted. You'll be introduced. Our treasurer has a few announcements for technologically connected people, and then we'll get you introduced and are looking forward to having you speak.
Thank you.
This is just delightful to have you.
Thank you.
It sounds like some of our folks know you, and that's not surprising, of course, but I'm always delighted to know about common connections with people I like, particularly. I guess I need to be glad to know about connections of people that I might not think that I liked. That's always helpful in our lines of work. Yeah. We can't undo what we don't recognize, so there we are.
Yes.
All of you who are tuned in, Ken Koenig is just one of the most delightful people I've ever met. He was, well, I'll tell you in the introduction a little bit about our connections, but this is just a great gift that he is with us today.
Good to be with you.
And now, can we go ahead and get started?
Absolutely. Let me just.
Okay, this is Annelle Neal, and I'm Ann Stewart, president, and we're going to start with Annelle Neal, who has information for you about today's program.
Okay.
Go ahead, Annelle.
Hi. I'm the treasurer for the League of Women Voters, and also set up the Zoom and the closed captioning. And I would like at this time to ask all but those people who are going to be bringing business to the meeting or will be our speakers to disengage your video so that we don't have the screen all clogged up. And also to mute yourself. I would like to take a moment to introduce you to our news closed captioning service. You may already see that there is closed captioning at the bottom of your screen. If you do not, drag your cursor down to where your little bottom menu pops up, and you will see a little box called CC for closed captioning, and you can click on that box. Is there anyone? I also put these instructions in the chat box in case anybody has trouble. Some machines, I understand, you have to click on the chat box. I mean, not the chat box, the closed captioning box, and then click the up arrow, and then click the down arrow if you want it to go away, if it's interrupting.
Do I need to disappear?
No.
Okay.
No.
I think you're going to be introduced and speaking to us. And then I have one more request to make. Most of you should be familiar with the chat box. And if you have questions for someone who is speaking or any of the business that gets discussed, would you please put your questions in the chat box? And I'll be monitoring the chat box so that if I see a question pop up when either the business is done or the speaker is done, I'll try to make sure, Anne, would you ask for questions when the time is appropriate? And then I'll let you know if there are any questions
Annelle,
in the chat box. Yes?
I think, all right. I would say, because I'm not on visually, can Ken see hands raised at the time people have questions, or can we make something work besides me trying to recognize?
I'll do that at the end of the speaker then. I'll check the chat box and I'll ask for any questions. How's that?
Great. And Ken is a right on the money kind of person, and so he knows he has to be finished by 12 because the other speakers can't, coming on, but he also will have to leave about that time. So I've asked him to give a little time for questions and answers. So he'll announce that when he's ready to have it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I still have a lot of people who are muted, but I can't seem to get them off of the screen so that we're still all clogged up. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to make Ken.
Well, people can just go on speaker view, right?
There you go. Yes,
yeah.
That's true. Ha. Smart. You're so smart. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are just delighted to have Ken Koenig with us today. He came to Corpus Christi as an international student. He was out at the university, and he was a tennis player, and that's how I knew him when I was teaching tennis for Del Mar. I would go and watch some of the students play and so forth. And I was just amazed at the quality of his movement, the beauty and the grace and the strength and the execution of every shot. And then when Del Mar people were teaching tennis at
HEB.
HEB, thank you, Ken. Ken was over there working with the people there, and so as I was coming and going, I would stop and visit with him some and watch him teaching. And ultimately, 2 of his children came and were in my classes at Del Mar, so I kept the connection. And then working with other civic organizations, I've kept up with him and some of his great work. I'm going to keep this introduction very short so you can hear him, but I want you to know he comes to us as an international person. So not only was he an international student when he arrived, he goes to Africa on a regular basis to help people there, and he will tell you about some of that work. So Ken, thank you so much for taking time to meet with us today, and we look forward to hearing everything you have to say. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Anne. It's a delight to be with you, ladies. As Anne was saying, I'm an international student, come from a country called Suriname in South America as a tennis player, and he played here at the University of Corpus Christi. That sort of dates me. And then I loved Corpus Christi so much, fell in love with a beautiful woman here at the University of Corpus Christi, who is my wife and the mother of our children. And we stayed here in Corpus Christi, and I love Corpus Christi. So a little bit about me. I'm now the pastor of a church called Walden Road Baptist Church in Flower Bluff. I'm also the president and founder of an organization called the Koenig Ministries. The Koenig is my last name. It is not that I was so in love with my last name. I was looking for a biblical name, but they seem to be all taken. So I went with the Koenig Ministries, and we're doing some different things that I would like to share with you a little bit. So we wrote a book called 1 + 1 = 1. It's on marriage. My wife and I do marriage seminars here in Corpus Christi and elsewhere. We either offer them, or else a church invites us to come teach on husband and wife relationships. We have a part of the ministry is Acts 2:21 that has to do with a sports outreach. We have a VBS ministry in different places, particularly in Ghana, Africa. And then as it concerns women in particular, we have a ministry called BRASA, B-R-A-S-A. BRASA means embraces and stands for energizing and mobilizing a brave and resolute army for Christ to empower sisters. So we do a lot in the way of BRASA. Right now we don't, but we used to have every other month a luncheon for women to encourage them to, some of the women had particular ministries going on so that they could expose their ministries to the group, for people to find out what they are doing, so that if God had moved on their hearts to be part of their ministry of what they are doing, then they would say so, and that has happened many times. So, and then here in America, we've done a lot in the way of math camps in the summer. It is in my heart to do a math ministry at some location, but COVID has put us back a little bit to do a math ministry for children who are struggling with math, not to make them math specialists, but to have them at least go through college without being scared of math, and be able to continue that. We have done sports outreaches and so on and so forth. And then in Ghana in particular, we have done something called VBS, Vacation Bible School. And here in 2019, we had about 10,000 children in 81 villages. In 2020, we felt like we had to maybe cancel it because of COVID-19, but we felt led that we should go on the radio instead. And it seemed like that we have reached, instead of just VBS children, we reached their older siblings, we reached the teenagers, and we reached the adults. And we sent it over 3 radio stations that would broadcast it to the different villages. it would get to the community center in the village, and then the community center would broadcast it into the homes of the villagers. And we feel like we have reached now well over 100,000 people, and they have asked us to continue a program. So at the 1st of 2021, we will have a radio program in place to continue to teach and reach the people in that way. In Ghana, one of the things we do is start village women in business. It is not like you have to raise $50,000 to start a McDonald's or something like that. But in many instances, you could have spent $500 or $600 or $1,000, or maybe even a little bit more to start a woman in business. So we have several businesses there that we started women with so that they could have an income, make an income for their family, for themselves. And so we have 2 grocery stores, we have a jewelry/clothing store, we have a plumbing store, a photography store, a hair salon, and so on and so forth. And we just recently sent some funds to start more people into business, sewing business, and so on and so forth. Just a real joy to get people an opportunity. And for $500, $600, $1,000, $1,200, $1,500, you get to start somebody in business. They would never have that kind of money all at one time to start a business. So this is just so great. We send people to school, both high school children who now the government is paying for it, but up to this year, they had to pay for themselves. And so we would help them to go to school, also adult men and women, nurses that then would be able to go to school, finish their schooling, and be able to make an income for their families so that they can do better. And then we're hoping that their business, whatever it is, that they might be able to hire some people as well, or at an appropriate time help out to send other people to school. So yeah, it is just absolutely wonderful to do these type of things. And then in my home country of Suriname, we say Suriname. We are partnering with an organization, with several organizations, but in particular with an organization called Weid Mijn Lammeren. Translated means Feed My Lambs. It's a children's ministry, and our contact over there named Gloria, who's the head of it, she takes care of, in her organization, about 200 children during the school year. It is a little bit different now with COVID-19, but 200 children that go to school at the school that she has at their compound, and then feeds them. And of these children, there is only a small percentage that their parents can even pay for it. So it is dependent upon partnerships, such as with the Koenig Ministries, and we do whatever we can to help the children over there, as well as finding opportunities to have jobs for adult women who become teachers. We have a sewing ministry over there, so we buy sewing machines for them to have a little bit more income. Some of them are seamstresses, but without a job or without a machine. So we provide them with machines and so on and so forth. So we have right now probably about 8 or 9 sewing machines. We hope that in the near future, we can have 30 machines for people to start a business together, and maybe in different groups, and do well with it. We are also partnering with an organization called Open Port, Open Gate, that is in one of the places away from the capital, probably about 4 hours driving. And they have a children's ministry over there, not only orphans, but also children whose parents cannot even take care of them. And then so we are trying to provide, things like washing machines and so on and so forth. So in the I'm backing up just a little bit in the ministry of Wade, Main, Lammeren, that is primarily a children's ministry. Now we have started also a Hadassah Project that is for COVID-19 is as devastating in Suriname as it is in America. So we have abuse there of women, and so then we try to give them housing for them and their children, and just finish the project there that will house, that with 6 rooms, that will house at least 6 women and their children. And so it is a marvelous thing. I can go on and on, but by now you might have maybe a question or so. And if you have a question for me, I'll be happy to answer it. Otherwise, I'll go on. Not everybody at the same time now.
I do not.
We could do hands up.
I don't see any questions in the chat box. So continue.
Okay. And so then in the ministry of Wade, Main, Lammeren that we partner with in Suriname, then when it comes to summertime, then the children, they have nothing to do unless we have something to do for them. So we organize then summer camps, and it is really amazing what we can do with how far the dollar stretches in Suriname. And they need a lot of support, and we are more than willing to do it best we can. For an example, in Suriname, I've seen it a moment over here, when the money goes, it has no more value. It's called inflation rate is about 70% in Suriname. And so it is difficult, even if you had the same amount of money, it doesn't buy as much as it would buy otherwise. So, and then a ministry like that in Suriname, then there is less support. So you have less a buying power and less a pure simple money. And so they have a hard time. And so when we send dollars to them, by the way, as compared to the dollar, now the exchange rate is 6 times higher than it used to be. So you can imagine what difficulty they have over there. So when we send dollars, they can do a lot with it. And we have been amazed at what they do when we send them money for summer camps, how many weeks they can go with the number of children that they take care of, and the number of t-shirts that they buy, and the number of meals that they provide. It is amazing. And so it was maybe 3 years ago or so that they couldn't go out of town with the children, so they did it on their own compound, but there was no swimming pool or creek that they could splash in. How do you have camp without a pool to splash in? So the request was made, hey, there is a pool that we can buy, a sort of a plastic above ground pool that is still there, by the way, even now, and it was $1,100. Well, we had $1,100, so it was a no-brainer for us to send the money to them to buy a pool, and the kids could play and splash in it during camp. And so we provide meals, we provide t-shirts, this time a pool, and supervision, and all that goes along with camp, and they have a blast. And this is how we try to take care of children and women. And then, of course, these children during the normal school years, they go to school, so we provide education for them, as well as to some adults that are short on money to go to school, and we're trying to help them to get an education so that they can do better for themselves, for their children, and ultimately even for society as they are becoming providers for their homes, or how you call it, contributors for their home. And it is just a marvelous thing to see both, and we are also in Kenya, of course, with the Maasai tribe, but I'll talk about it maybe another time. to see, as one of the pastors writes to me, he says, you put smiles on the faces on people who otherwise would not have hope. And what a glorious thing that is, to get a smile on somebody's face who otherwise would not have hope. And obviously, it is really not us. I'm a pastor, so I can't help myself but talk about the one who saved my life and has done so much for me. Jesus Christ is his name, and not to start preaching, but just to let you know that what a difference he has made and what a difference he's making in all these people's lives that I'm talking about right now. So I'm so thankful for the opportunity to even be involved in helping people. Any questions?
I have one while we're waiting. Oh,
Okay,
do you have someone else?
No,
No, let's do other people first.
I do not have anybody else in the chat box asking questions.
Okay, well, let me ask this. Now, we're all concerned with our elections and in our country, and we're always concerned with protecting democracy, and we're working to get votes out and support the continuity of a Republican kind, and not party, but the support of a republic kind of government so that we all get to participate. Can you talk to us about the crime rate, in the difference you've seen in crime in the areas? Like, we hear something about Kenya, or we hear about Ghana and so forth, that if there's something about crime, or do you see some of these people who are coming through your camps wanting to come to the United States, or are they, I mean, you've talked about the development of some of the businesses, so obviously some are staying right there and working, but can you talk about some of those things for us?
Well, you must know, I'm a foreigner. I'm a naturalized American, right? So
yes.
I love America. If my beef is that Americans maybe don't appreciate America as much as a foreigner appreciates America. And I have traveled enough through tennis in some of the countries that lots of people would like to live in. There is no close second to America. Everybody wants to come to America. And so, yes, whatever we're doing over here with in our broken ways, we are still, so to speak, the apple of the eye of the world. Everybody wants to come to America. And so we have, through tennis, I have been able to provide opportunities. I must have been the first Surinamese that came to college here on a tennis scholarship. I had a full scholarship. It didn't cost my parents a dime. This is the opportunity that America created for me. And so, having had the opportunity, I was looking for players in my home country, that some of whom, a number of whom, came to train with me here in America. And then also, we looked for scholarships for them at different universities, of course. And many, many of them got opportunities, because America, once again, is unique in that if you're good in athletics, a lot of academic doors open up for you. This is not true in Europe. This is not true in South America. It is either one or the other. Either you do the athletics and excel and do well with it enough to make a living, or else you do well in academics, but usually not both. In America, you have the opportunity to do both. So, to give you an example, when I went to college here for 4 years, my education was paid for, my food was paid for, except for the summertime. My training was paid for, my equipment was paid for, my education was paid for. What a place! and you know what? When I first came over here, my birthday is July 4th, and then I saw people raising flags on my birthday and shooting fireworks. I thought to myself, what a hospitable country this is. Just jokingly, but what a place America is. And so, if you ask the question about crime rate, it seems like we know when things are not going that well, if there is poverty, the more people are inclined to want to steal a little or a little more. In Ghana, the crime rate seems to be fairly low. In Suriname, it is not sky high, but it's moving up a little bit. But you know, as we are providing opportunities for people, I think the crime rate goes down.
Great.
America,
How are we doing on?
America is a great country. If you haven't noticed, let me inform you. It is a great, great country. And I love America. Yes. I love my country too, but I love America.
Well, that's great. Are there any other questions? This is a great thing.
I still do not see any questions in the chat box. I can.
How are we doing on time?
It's almost noon.
Yeah, it's almost noon. So,
well, Ken, before you go, can you talk? You told us about the thousands now that you have worked with here in Corpus Christi, and do you see those children staying here and participating in some of the activities of the city or the country?
You're talking about the folks, the young people that came from our home country of Suriname?
No, I was talking about here in Corpus Christi. You work with lots of people in the community.
Yes.
So I was just looking for another word or two about your success in their lives, how you turned their lives around.
I have always felt and always believed that as a tennis pro, it was not just about teaching tennis. It was about influencing people. For an example, this morning I had a lesson with a 14-year-old, and he told his mom, I need lunch early today. And I say, you shouldn't talk to your mom like that. And I feel free to do it because I love these kids, so they receive from me. I say, you should say something like, Mom, would it be possible to have lunch ready for me by noon because I have so much to do? Otherwise, you talk to her like a maid, and even you shouldn't talk to a maid like that. In the restaurant, you should talk. So anyways, just to let you know that I've always felt like I need to influence children. And yes, many have stayed in Corpus Christi. Many I'm still in touch with through Facebook or whatever means. Some of them even support my ministry. Some of them I did their weddings. And yes, they are involved in both in Corpus Christi and in other places in Texas and in other places in the United States. Few have left the United States to go somewhere else.
That's great. Well, we better let you go to your next engagement, but thank you so much. For
the Lord bless you.
We're always glad to hear encouraging things going on, and appreciate all of your work in that direction. So happy Thanksgiving to you. Thanks. And
happy Thanksgiving to you.
Thanks. Okay, Julie, are you here? Is Julie here?
I am. I'm not quick on the keys. All right.
I understand how that works. But I just want to turn the meeting over to you so you can introduce our next speaker.
Wonderful, and I have the proud distinction of doing that. I'm so glad. I'm Julie Rogers, the Vice President of Program, and I'm very thankful that we are here in Corpus Christi, and even more thankful to have our next guest speaker. We have Christine Bryant. Christine is an certified economic developer, and she's currently the only female in South Texas that holds that distinction. And I thought that was very important since we're celebrating our right to vote and women's leadership. So thank you, Christine, for leading our way to a better working profession. Christine is also the Vice President of Existing Industry and Regional Development for the Corpus Christi Regional Economic Development Corporation. She also heads the Coastal Bend Business Resources Working Group, which is a regional collaborative with multiple cities, counties, chambers of commerce, economic development organizations, and other public-private sector service providers in the Coastal Bend of Texas. They've been working to bring cross-pollination of best practices, measure the economic impact of COVID-19 through business surveys and collaboration to enhance wealth creation in the region. So this is a very timely presentation, and we thank you, Christine, for giving us an update on your efforts that are being undertaken. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. It's an honor to be with you all today, and I'm going to share screen, and hopefully this will go smoothly. And I see a few names that I recognize. You guys are seeing my screen? Give me a thumbs up. Awesome, great. So it's good to be here today. I have to tell you, that was the first time I've ever mentioned the female certified economic developer status in South Texas. I normally don't make that distinguishment, but I figured since I'm speaking to the League of Women Voters, that's probably an applicable time. So I'm just honored to be here with you today to talk about it. And I will tell you at any time, ask questions, throw them out. I know that somebody's monitoring it, but I'm used to, when I do presentations, that it's more of an engagement, a talk back and forth. So honored to be with you today. Let me get this to advance. Okay, so once again, and I don't know how long it's been since the CCREDC presented to you all, but I always like to kind of talk about our mission. We are about primary employment. We focus on the attraction, retention, and expansion of primary jobs. And a primary job is a job with an organization or company that the revenue is generated elsewhere. So it's generated in other parts of the country and even other parts of the state. So over 50% of that company's revenue must come from outside of the area. So what we try to do is take those dollars that are generated elsewhere and put them in our community into local jobs that then shop in our stores and buy our homes and go to our dentist and all those things. So we want to attract primary jobs, and that's what we focus on. I always like to talk about the amazing group of people that I'm privileged to work with. And Ian Vasey is our CEO. He's been with the EDC for about 5 years here. And Mike Culbertson, the gentleman there is, we call him one of the smartest people in the room. When we talk about Mike, I always say he's probably one of the most interesting people I've ever met. He has all of these letters behind his name. He has an MBA, he's a CPA, he's a former naval aviator. He actually landed on Lexington as a Navy pilot. He has multiple carrier landings throughout his career. So he's just a fascinating person. But Mike is our chief operating officer, but he also does compliance for the region. So compliance is when you have an incentive agreement with a company and they say, we're going to produce this many jobs and we're going to put this much money we're going to invest this much capital into our project. Mike is the one that goes on site to make sure the company has done that. And so no incentives ever are released without Mike Culbertson saying that the company has earned that incentive. Sarah Tyndall is our Vice President of External Affairs. I also say Sarah Tyndall is one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. If you don't know Sarah Tyndall, you need to know Sarah Tyndall. She is a wealth of expertise and knowledge. She works on all of our external affairs. She works with our investors, and she is so good at making sure that our investors are tuned in to what we do and that we're tuned into what they need. So I applaud her. Tommy Kurtz is probably one of the best, and he sits behind me. So if you see anybody walking back there, that's Tommy. He does our business attraction. So Tommy is the one that brings the new businesses into the area. Tommy was the project lead on Steel Dynamics, which we'll talk about in a little. One of the best in the business that what Tommy does. He actually came out of Louisiana. I think he's been here 5 years as well. And of course, Pamela Lago is our information manager. She's our veteran here. She's been 13 years here at the EDC. And so one of the things we talked about was our certification. So we have 3 what we call CECDs, and that's Certified Economic Developers through the International Economic Development Council. We talk about that because we are the only EDC in the entire state of Texas that has 3 certified economic developers on staff. There are about 99 certified economic developers throughout the state of Texas. So it's a hard fought certification. In order just to sit for the exam, you have to have a minimum of 5 years full-time uninterrupted experience in economic development. You have to take about 120 hours of coursework, and then you have to pass a 3-part exam that has a 40% pass rate. So I always say that picture was taken before I studied for the exam, and now look what it's done to me. But we're honored to have 3 CECDs, and we have to continue to re-earn that certification as well. So what do I do? And I always say, I do the most important job in economic development. You know, everybody thinks that it's all about new projects, which are wonderful and exciting. We all love them, but taking care of our existing industry is the most important thing we can do. Taking care of the businesses that are coming into our community and that continue to put people to work year after year, decade after decade, they are very important to us, because we know the most new jobs we actually get will come from our existing industry. And so we want to make sure they're taken care of. Now, in times of disaster, my job becomes even more important. And so unfortunately, I have some disaster experience, and I wish I didn't have as much as I do. And so, because we're talking about the COVID-19 disaster, but just to kind of give you a little backstory, I was in Joplin, Missouri in 2011 when an EF5 tornado hit. We had 31 minutes of everything being destroyed with 5 minutes of warning. So that picture of the helicopter, that's actually St. John's Hospital. I was, after that was taken, an AP photographer told me that they actually thought that was photoshopped, that helicopter. It was just too dramatic of a shot. But no, that was actually what happened to the hospital. That hospital was actually torqued 4 inches off of its base. That's how powerful an EF5 tornado is. The gentleman that you see, I didn't even know this picture was taken. My sister found it on the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and she's in Missouri. That's Dwayne Vinson, and he's one of my personal heroes. He worked at the Holiday Inn, saved his family, and I happened to be helping a friend dig out, and Dwayne was there. He's actually injured in that picture, and his wife and his son were still in the hospital, but they're all doing well today. Excuse me. And then at the bottom is Sugar Land, Texas, where Hurricane Harvey hit. Of course, we're all familiar with that. And I was in the City of Sugar Land Office of Economic Development. And that building right there is called Sugar Creek on the Lake. And actually that building flooded during Harvey. And so Sugar Land did really well, but that building, the basement flooded. But there were 2,400 jobs in that one building alone. So keep in mind, in Joplin, we had about 5,000 jobs affected. In one building in Sugar Land, Texas, there's 2,400 jobs that are displaced. So what I have to do is figure out, there were 14 tenants in that building. How do we find them other places to work while this building is under repair, and to get them back into Sugar Land, Texas, back in their offices as quickly as possible? So currently COVID-19. So let me back up a little bit. In March, we were planning as a regional collaborative a major opportunity zone summit. And since I'm speaking to voters, you all probably are aware, December 2017, the Federal Tax Cut and Jobs Act was signed into law, and that created an opportunity zone program. And in Corpus Christi, we have 8 zones. In our region, there are probably 14, and these allow for additional capital investment to be invested into projects within zones that allow for some tax credits and some tax deferment that those investors get. And so it's a brand new federal program. We're working hard with all of these counties around to put together CBTX OZ20. And the President Trump had, by executive order, created the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council, which we call the WHORC. And that is 17 federal agencies that give priority to projects in opportunity zones. So from Small Business Administration to Economic Development Administration to Department of Transportation, Department of Justice, all of their grants give priority to opportunity zone projects. So we were focused on that. And then, and we actually had the WHORC come to that summit that we were going to have in April. When the federal declaration happened, our summit was canceled. But the group of people, so we had to postpone CBTX OZ, but the group of people that were working on planning that summit just pivoted, like so many of our businesses have pivoted to form the COVID-19 Business Resources Working Group. And I'll share with you, this is just kind of a snippet of all of the organizations that we have that have partnered together. We have calls every 2 weeks. We were actually back in March, we're having calls every week, is how do we work together to provide resources to all the businesses that we knew were going to be impacted. Because we knew we're looking at probably some shutdowns, we're looking at some closures, we're looking at some ways that we have to kind of support our businesses to get them through what we thought would be about a 2-month process. So this group of folks is still working together. We just had a call last Friday to continue to see what all do our businesses need and how do we help. So I always kind of joke that I'm sure every single person on this call has taken some kind of survey or seen some kind of request for a survey. I know that we've done 4 of them, and I feel that there's probably survey fatigue, but I have to thank you if you've completed a survey or if you see a survey, because you're giving us, when you provide us that data, we have to measure economic impact in times of disaster, because we want to get economic impact data into the hands of our decision makers, our federal, state, and local elected leadership. We want to get that into their hands so that they can create policy and programs to help. So you're giving us a big advantage when you do that. Now the working group that I talked about, we partnered with one of my favorite people, Dr. Jim Lee at Texas A&M University Corpus Christi, the economist. And he has just been an amazing asset to have. And so we have created some economic impact surveys. The regional group will send out a survey to all of their stakeholders. The data comes right back to Dr. Lee, who then analyzes it and sends it back out so that we can instantly share those results with our regional, state, and federal leadership. So I'll give you an example of how we used this data. So this was on our very first survey that you can tell we launched early in March. And one of the things I want to draw your attention to is what I saw, and this was the number that kind of scared me when I saw it, is that we asked businesses, we had about 500 businesses respond, is how long can you survive? How much capital or cash do you have to survive if you're shut down? You can see the median average there is 6 weeks, and the average is 12 weeks. The problem, the concern is, when you think about it, 500 people, 500 businesses answered that survey, we had 250 businesses that were not going to be able to survive a 6-week shutdown or a 2-month shutdown, however it was. So what do we do in that situation? So we started pulling together one-sheeters of all of the available programs that we knew about, all of the resources. And I'm sure you saw that these are in multiple languages. This is actually just a snip of a document that we put together that tells businesses that you can talk to their banks or go to the Small Business Development Center. And it had all the loan programs and capital programs available, but we knew we needed to put it in multiple languages. So we made it easier. So we included Chinese, we included Spanish, and in addition to English and Vietnamese. One of our landlords had said he had some tenants that needed it in Vietnamese. So we were able to accommodate that. So that's just kind of a sample of those kind of programs that we were doing in the beginning of the COVID-19 to kind of respond. We get data, we analyze, we create programs so we can get capital into the hands. I will tell you, when I mentioned that one survey where we saw the 6 weeks to the 12 weeks on how long they could last, on our second survey that we did in April, we had about 900 responses, and that 6-week median response went to 12 weeks, and that 12-week average went to 20 weeks. So we knew there were programs out there like the PPP and the City of Corpus Christi, Corpus Christi Lift Fund program. They were able to stretch capital resources a little bit more, so we gave our businesses a little bit more time. We as a staff, though, began to look at, we have a whole different world in front of us now, that everything we thought we were going to do, we now have to reset because we have a different environment. So we created as a team what we call charting a new course. And these are kind of our 5-step marching orders of what we're going to work on. So we are doing a renewed targeted industry analysis, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well. We're also looking at reshoring, onshoring, and nearshoring, getting things that normally come across, supply chains that are coming either internationally or domestically. What do we need to have on a raw material side to be able to help? Hello? Is there a question? Okay. Okay, I'm going to keep going. So what can we bring closer to help our businesses and industry get access to what they need? In addition, we're going to create some focus groups when we're able to gather safely together to talk to similar industries to find out what products do you have that is coming down the highway or coming from elsewhere that we can go talk to those headquarters and say, you need to open a place here. We need to get closer. Hello? Okay. So when I talked about the updating of the targeted industry analysis, the last one that was done here was in 2016. And you can see the targeted industries currently that Tommy goes after. When we say go after, this is the projects that he's chasing. So specialty steel production, of course, natural gas, oil, NGLs, aerospace industry. Unmanned aerial systems has been really a brand new, we've already got some success in that area. We know that that's a new direction for him to go as well. And then of course, entrepreneurship and small business growth. So we're currently redoing that entire study, and Tommy is heading that. So you can tell he's already had 25 community interviews, 11 roundtables. We've hired a firm to do all sorts of analysis. So we expect to have a new report in January to say, here's where you need to go. And so we want to make sure that we take a rifle approach when we're working with businesses. We want to attract the ones that will be a fit for our region. So some of the recent projects that you've probably seen, Steel Dynamics was the big one that was just recently announced. That is in Sinton, Texas. But we continue to see other companies come and co-locate on that site. So that project is continuing. Gulf Coast Growth Ventures, I just toured it just a couple days ago, and they have thousands of people working on that site right now. But you may have seen, if anybody's tried to buy a house recently, they had about 300 people that were being trained elsewhere that they have now brought back to the region. They were training for about 2 years. The folks that they've hired for the local plant, they're now here buying houses and relocating here to begin to operations on that plant. Now, I don't know, I wanted to show you kind of the Steel Dynamics campus, and I don't know if this is going to work, but we'll try it. Are you able to give me a thumbs up if you can see the video? Yes, okay. And so this is just some drone footage of the actual sit-in site. Now, this is 2,400 acres of land that had nothing on it, and it is becoming this incredible project. In academic development, it gives us the warm fuzzies when we see things go vertical, start to come out of the ground. Just look at the size of just the equipment of what they're building and the people. It's massive. It's a massive project. And I can tell you that we, let me see if I can get back to that. Where are we? There we are. You know, the day before that project was announced, I remember talking to Tommy Kurtz, like, this is one of those transformational projects that will change the folks in Sinton and bring so much to that area. So we're very excited. And a lot of those folks that they're buying homes in Corpus Christi. So they're living in Cal Allen buying homes as well. So it benefits everyone. Another thing that we're doing as well is direct access. We want to go directly to our leadership. And as the League of Women Voters, I think you'll appreciate this, that, you know, we're not operating through lobbyists. We go face to face and we knock on doors to advocate for our region. Of course, was privileged last year in 2019 to meet with Secretary Carson. I was invited by Mayor Kathy Scarrow to join her and a few other people to meet with Secretary Carson to talk about opportunity zones, as well as recently we just had a visit from the White House Opportunity Revitalization Council. That gentleman there that's looking at Dr. Miller is Mr. Scott Turner, who's the executive director of the White House Opportunity Revitalization Council. And next to him is Michael Burley, who's the brand new Region 6 HUD administrator. They came and toured our Opportunity Zone project. So it was an honor to have Scott here, and he brings with him a lot of resources. So we toured, currently in Corpus Christi, we have $90 million in capital investment in Opportunity Zone projects. So the Texas A&M Corpus Christi downtown building is in an Opportunity Zone. Down at the far, if you look at the bottom of your screen to the right, that is what is now called the Chamberlain. If you all know, in downtown Corpus Christi, sometimes it's referred to as the old HEB headquarters, that beautiful building. Well, of course, Fraser Family Companies have purchased that building and are revitalizing it. It is an Opportunity Zone project. And we gave them a tour of that. And once again, it's called the Chamberlain. So it continues to, it's going to be an incredible asset once it's finished. And of course, our latest project we're working on, in addition to our targeted industry analysis, is quality of place. We're doing yet another survey, working with a consultant to look as a region as how do we define who we are as a region to be able to make this the place that people want to come and raise their families, that our college students want to continue to stay here. So this is a survey for residents. And I'd invite you all to take the survey to ask, what are we missing? What is it we need to focus on for our region to help make this an even better, wonderful place to live? So, and then one of the things I want to land on as well, and I'm wrapping up here to be able to take questions, is that shortly after Steel Dynamics was launched, we began hearing that in bringing people to the area, they want to know kind of more about the area and where to live. So we actually created, Sarah Tyndall in our office created this website, explorethecoastalbend.com, where you can click on each one of these icons and see and see what the schools are like, see what the travel time is like to where you work. And so you get a better feel of, if I'm moving here from California, where is it that I want to live? Where do I work? And where do, if I have kids, where do I want them to go to school? There's also real estate information on there as well. So we just try to provide those tools. I'm going to stop sharing now. Try to provide those tools to our industry that will benefit them and help them continue to bring new jobs here, continue to improve the quality of life, continue to provide tax revenue to our government, to our local government, to our state government, so that we can continue to add on those amenities that make this a great place to live. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions. I know that was a lot. There's a lot of chat.
Okay, we do have several questions for you. Beginning with Sally Ferris. Sally, would you like to unmute yourself and ask the question, or would you prefer I read it from the chat?
Let's see, I'm trying to unmute myself here now. Thank you very much for being here with us. We really do appreciate it, and we appreciate that Dr. Jim Lee is one of your resources. He's highly respected in this community. And my question specifically that rather grows out of some of Dr. Lee's work is that existing industry, and the emphasis on existing, has a critical and vested interest in maintaining federal ozone air attainment standards. And we began working back in the mid-'80s on that with EPA for a flexible air agreement. And I'm wondering if your industrial promotion is now taking into consideration the quality of new industry, and specifically their emissions inventories for protection of the airshed for our existing operations.
And I can tell you absolutely. It's one of the questions. We actually look at the environmental record of the companies that we work with, and we fully expect them to adhere to that. What's interesting, the Coastal Bend Air Quality Working Group, are you a member of that? I was just on Gretchen's call Monday. That industry is involved in that group as well. So yes, we're very aware of that. To maintain our ozone status is important to us because Houston is not in it. So we want to make sure that not only because we live here and we want it, but we want our industry to understand that we have a high standard when it comes to our air quality, and we expect them to keep that. So yes, it is part of our conversation. We've actually said no to one company recently that we didn't talk to because we didn't think their environmental record was adequate.
Thank you.
Okay, Julie, you had a question. Would you like to unmute yourself?
Yes, hi. At the beginning, you were talking about the surveys with the businesses, and I just wondered, was there a trend as to what businesses were more vulnerable than others with the impact of COVID-19?
Early on, leisure and hospitality took a big hit. Leisure and hospitality, whatever was non-essential, I think took the hits. You know, I came out of Sugar Land, Texas. They're impacted a little different because they're a Class A office market. They don't do a lot of manufacturing. We're fortunate in this area that we do have manufacturing, and most of our companies here are essential. But what we found are those small businesses that are in the service sector, the restaurants, the bars, the gyms, the nail salons, and every place that had to close, and even the restaurants because their capacity is limited. Those were the folks that were feeling the pinch. You know, our hotels initially, because remember, we had COVID hit at the same time. That would have been our spring break, which essentially got cut short. So hospitality, service, those kind of sectors, I think, were the hardest hit.
Okay. Julie, did that answer your question? Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Teresa Carrillo had the next question. Teresa, would you unmute yourself?
Okay, but I don't exactly see my question. This is Teresa Carrillo. Thank you for being here. And when you talked about being at disasters, I mean, I can remember what I wrote, but I can't exactly see it.
Would you like me to read it back?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Can you read that in?
Yes. Speaking to disasters, can you describe the impacts of the deadly Enterprise pipeline explosion of August 21st that caused death and injury and destruction? Impacts to our economic community and the population at large. Do you want to add anything to that, Teresa?
Yeah, thank you, Ann. What I was thinking was that we had so much rapid, almost unchecked growth and development that they pushed this ginormous pipeline through, and I don't know when it got completed, but obviously there were some glitches, because then you have a dredger come through, and these dredgers, they have all the data they need that tells them where stuff is at the bottom of the ship channel, because they know their lives are in jeopardy when they're doing that dredging. It's a very serious operation. And yet they didn't have this information, or, I can't believe that they were incompetent, but they hit that pipeline, blew it up, and they were killed. So what I want to know is, what are we doing here to ensure safety and environmental protection? Because obviously we're getting a little too big for our britches if people are getting killed on brand new economic development activities. And that I'll let it go with that.
Well, and I understand your question, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to answer it because I wasn't involved in that disaster. And so the one thing, I can speak to the disasters that I personally have been involved in and know that they're devastating. They have a devastating effect. But unfortunately, I'm just not equipped to answer that question because I truly don't know the details on that disaster. So I apologize.
No problem. I just wonder how the overall impact of having a disaster like that causes us to reflect on rapid growth and what we're doing to make sure that when things we have these big industries coming in, that we don't, like Steel Dynamics, for example, that their discharges don't load Chiltepin Creek with all kinds of heavy metals. And we've got to consider these things because otherwise people are going to get hurt. That's my point.
And I hear you, and I can tell you that someone that, like myself, that speaks with industry and like I said, just toured a major project just a few days ago, that adherence to safety is critical. When you go on job sites and you see that they do everything there, when you can only drive 5 miles an hour on a construction site, the adherence to safety is important. And I've talked to many plant managers that have said, I live here and I work here and my family's here, so it's important to me. So, I hear what you're saying and know that it's important to us as well, and it's important to industry as well because they all have families as well. So, I wish I could answer your question more directly, but I can just tell you from what I do with the existing industry, I have seen a desire for safety at all levels because they care deeply.
Okay, the next question was from Teresa Klein. Teresa, would you like to unmute yourself?
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I guess one of the questions that I have is, and it's coming from my background as a college instructor here, is that are we only looking at heavy industry? My college students, they are concerned about the environment. They're concerned about the epigenetic impact of being exposed to so much pollution in this area. And are we looking at industries that are not heavy industries so we can keep them here and not have the brain drain away from Corpus Christi?
Mm-hmm. Great question. And, so we call it heavy manufacturing, and there's light industrial and heavy. I was hoping to be able to make the announcement today to you all, and it's not available yet. We have a new tech company coming. It's a small number of jobs, but we're seeing a lot of companies are leaving California. And they're leaving California because the burden is heavy there, the tax burden is heavy there, and they're coming to Texas. And we have a new tech company that's coming here that we know college students are going to love, is what I'm going to tell you that. And so even that unmanned aerial system focus as well is that we want to diversify everything. We know if it's all just in heavy industrial, that we've got everything in that one sector. If something were to happen disaster-wise and we have to shut down, then it puts us all in a bad situation. So we want to diversify our tax base as much as we can. We'll also see as well as what will our new targeted industry tell us, what direction we can go. That's why to do that refresh is really important right now, to really to look at, see, what are we not focusing in a post-COVID environment that we need to look at now that might be beneficial. So yeah, I hear you, and we've heard that a lot as well.
Do you mind if I do a quick follow-up? Because I had a second question that was related to that. And looking at the long-term impact of the environmental project, on the environment of projects that you're bringing in, like Steel Dynamics or Exxon or anything like that, I guess what I'm hearing from my students is they are afraid to grow up and raise a family in an area with pollution that these are going to put out. And I know they follow their regulations, but the regulations in Texas, another reason they're coming here is it's pretty loose on the regulations. And so that's a concern that a lot of the students have. And so I just want to kind of put that out there. And that was a question that I had, is looking at that long-term impact.
Yeah, and I would invite you and your students to, you know, that survey that I said at the end, that our coastal bend, that's kind of asking those kind of questions as well, which I think are important to know. See, feedback like that is very, very important for us as well. So I thank you for that. And one of the things that I saw on the GCGV project is they have what's called a ground flare. If they ever had to flare, it's actually 100 tiny little, not tiny, but they're not like a big, huge flare. It's 100 of these tiny ground flares that have a berm, and those are designed to take it down to like 99 point something. And I'm sorry, I'm not a scientist, but to really, if they have to flare, it will burn everything possible. So it's, yeah, go ahead.
And that's where they have to get a railroad commission, because all flaring has to be cleared by the railroad commission.
You're asking a question?
Oh, I was just wondering, are those little flares, are they all controlled by the railroad commission as well?
And they won't be an active flare. It's just kind of and I'm sorry, I'm not so skilled on that, but it's a new process that they're taking on a ground flare. In case they would ever have to flare, it was a different way to do it, so it burns off even more. So there's nothing. I mean, minuscule is what they had said. So, but I'm sure it does. I mean, I'd have to direct you to them as well for that.
Okay. Moving on, Debbie Noble did not have post a question, but she did post the survey that Christine related to. And it is in your chat, and it is posted at 12:21 p.m. if you would like to find it and copy that and respond to the survey. Are you doing okay on time?
Me?
Ms. Bryant? Yes.
Yes, I'm good.
Okay. Paula Brighton had a question.
All right. Well, I've been taking advantage of this whole COVID pandemic lockdown, and I've been attending the Sustainable Innovation Forum out of, I guess it was supposed to be in Glasgow, but I think it's in the UK now. So today's topic was heavy industry and the move in several countries to green their steel production. What's being done to reduce the carbon footprint of industries in the coastal bend region, as we are a coastal region and rising sea levels will affect us?
That is a great question. And let me get you the latest on that. I'm not the person to answer that question, but I can get you the person to answer that question. Okay, does that work?
Okay, you bet.
Yeah. I mean, are you all familiar with Gretchen Arnold's group?
Who?
Nope.
Gretchen Arnold's Coastal Bend Air Quality Working Group?
Not I don't know about the rest of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was previously the Corpus Christi Air Quality Group.
Yes.
So it's been around since the 90s under that name. It was recently changed to the Coastal Bend Air Quality Partnership.
Yes, I couldn't remember the new name. Thank you, because I remember there were discussion on that. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it's recently been updated, but a lot of industry and other public stakeholders and government and public stakeholders have been involved in that, which has helped keep our area in attainment.
Okay.
Thank you.
And if you'll, like you said, you could get the answer to that question.
Yeah,
and
I've made
it
a
to
note.
us.
Yep, carbon footprint and what all, and you answered specifically steel dynamics, correct?
Yeah, it was like I said, it was green steel today, but basically reducing the carbon footprint in our area.
Gotcha. Yep.
Okay, if you will email that to, I guess me, I'll email it, I'll pass it along to Sandra Heatherly, and who is our membership chair, and she will put out a member blast with the response to that question.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Our next question is from Peggy Duran. Peggy, gonna have to unmute. There you are.
Hi, and I think you kind of addressed this already because I was concerned also about the accumulative effect of so much industry there in the port area. but let me, since you did address that, and if you'd like to go into more, I'd appreciate it. But as a former kindergartner teacher, I remember where we tried to get our kids to learn to clean up their messes. And I'm wondering, when you look at the different industries that come in, if you look at their histories of how they've handled themselves when there have been environmental problems and how they've addressed them.
I'm sorry, that was a question. I thought you were still making a statement.
No, I was wondering how do you look at the industry's history of environmental concern and how careful they have been in different circumstances and different.
Absolutely. And as I told you, I don't name the names, but we did have a project probably last year that approached, and we knew that there was a challenging, I'm not gonna say a bad record, but a record is what I would say, of some issues. And we just don't, we live here too, is what I would say. So even, we ask that when they're coming to talk about any possible incentives, we're looking at those records as well. That's why it's important to us that when we announce a project, that it's a project everyone can celebrate, and to knowing that we have done all that we can, that we know we want to keep it. We want to bring in good jobs that are great for our community, but we don't want to do it to the detriment of our community. So it is something we look at, and it's something that we're asked about a lot. So your question's not surprising to me at all, because even from our board of directors, even from when we're talking about a potential project, that is a question they ask us as well.
And I heard you say during Debbie just posted something that said during your presentation, you did mention that you had turned away a company because they had a sketchy environmental record.
Yeah.
Christy Romero had a statement. It was just a thank you. Do you have a question, Chrissy, as well? Anything that you would like to ask? No? Okay, Adriana E. has a question for you. Adriana, can you unmute yourself?
Sure. Hi, Christy.
Hey.
I am here to ask about your role in helping keep contractors, builders, constructors, and developers in the area to help with housing affordability.
Yeah, that's been it's something we've been looking at the housing for a while, even though, we don't work in multifamily, but we know that being able to find places to live are really, really important for our businesses. It used to be finding available workforce was important, but now it's finding housing. We do have several home builders within our group, and we have partnered again. We're going to talk about Dr. Jim Lee again, that we have been looking at housing demand and what it was going to look like going forward. So Dr. Lee's been a big part to do a couple of housing studies. We do know that it's a challenge because developers need to be able to build to capacity, but they have to build to the density at the right price point because they have to be able to get their margins as well. We did have a home builder here recently get acquired by D.R. Horton, which will expand that ability to be able to provide those homes. Ian Vasey talks a lot about that 200,000 price point is pretty important, and to be able to find homes. I think the last, and I'm trying to pull up the economic trends. I think the last trend we had about a 2.5 to 3 month. You probably have real estate folks on your group in it as well. We had about a 2.5 to 3 month supply of houses. They're going quickly. So it is something that we have, especially last year, we started asking a lot of questions and having some conversations with our home builders, because it truly are building as much as they can, but it became the price of lumber. And then even if you had a lumber, do you have the workforce to be able to build the houses? So I think by additional, by this recent acquisition and additional resources that were poured in, we just need more homes. And price of land was a challenge too. So it is something that we are mindful of. That's why we have the quality of place survey going on right now, and those results I don't think we'll see till next year as well as far as the recommendations, but it'll be interesting to see from that viewpoint what their recommendations are as well when it comes to housing. So when you say, you know, our role is to kind of figure out kind of where we are with it, and is it hindering what we're doing, because we want this to be a thriving place. And so we do a lot of studies to see where it is, to kind of get some answers, because we all have our opinions, but when you kind of look at data, that's why Dr. Lee, he's data. And so it doesn't matter what I think, he provides the data. So it's something we're working on.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you so much for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Very well done.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like Mary Sherwood. Is that a statement or is that a question, Ms. Sherwood?
It was just a comment with regard to the thing about home building. Del Mar had gotten a grant where they are training lots of folks throughout the area in the home building trades, and they just
carpentry program. You're right.
And they just received an award from the state for that.
We're so fortunate to have the Del Mars, the Texas A&M Corpus Christi, and the craft training centers in our region. I can tell you that they're great resources to have.
Yeah. Full disclosure, I'm just going off the board of Del Mar, so.
Oh, okay. Good.
All right. Did I miss anyone, or is there anyone that has a question that you would like to direct?
This is Julie. I just had a question. You mentioned people moving here. You know, I want to grow the town as well. What I hear trying to recruit people here, I retired here, but we've tried to recruit doctors and nurses here. And I've heard people try to recruit tech people here as well. And they say the quality of life is so important to them. And there's not a lot of recreational activities. And I feel like we're growing that way, but we have still a long way to go. And that's why the environmental impact is so important, that we keep our water clean, and that we grow our public sectors, like the services like libraries and our health department. But in that vein, I wondered if people were moving here, do you have a trend of where they're moving from? Like
we've been asking that same question, and we're working with Dr. Lee as well, as because they're coming from, we want to know, we asked the same question. It's a great question. Where are they coming from? This company that we have coming out of California, that I talked to you about, that a lot of people from California are coming to Texas. It was a similar kind of atmosphere. And I always think, you know, I've only been here about 2.5 years, and this is a beautiful area. When you walk in and see it for the first time, it's breathtaking. It really is. And you know, our office is in one shoreline. So when we bring projects in, and I can see the bay right here, and everybody does the same thing. They walk in and stare out that window and just look at how beautiful it is. And so it has a great aesthetic, but we want to maintain that as well. It's very important to us because it's unique. I mean, I came from, I think I told you, from Sugar Land, Texas. We're office buildings, and we have a minor league ballpark in Sugar Land, and we have a town square in Sugar Land. We have those things. But coming here to the coastal bend, it is the wow factor. And, you know, and I think somebody had asked, we had an engineering firm last year looking to bring 40 engineers on a project. And they have thousands of engineers. So they asked in their Houston office. And the engineers that volunteered that come down here and work were the ages between 48 and 52. It was interesting to me. It was that kind of age. And I laughed because at that point, I'm not that old anymore, but that was the age that I came down here as well, between 48, and I won't tell you what, but I was older than 48. So it was just interesting to me, but even that quality of place study we're doing it is we want to see how do we expand that age group, you know, that we get our college students to graduate and stay here. And somebody mentioned the brain drain, I hear you. So we want that to be, everybody want to come here.
Okay, Peggy Duran had a follow-up question.
I didn't know if you were interested at all in the smart growth movement, or if you know if that's still a factor here, because at one point they were looking into redeveloping some of our older neighborhoods and making them real people-friendly places. Do you know if that's still a consideration or a group that promotes that?
I mean, I think I was getting ready when I was doing the Opportunity Zone Summit. I had somebody speaking, and his name is Christopher, and I can't remember his last name, with a Smart City, Smart Growth. I can't remember the name of the organization. The Opportunity Zones that I was talking about have that kind of component. Now, Opportunity Zones are 8 designated census tracts we have in the Corpus Christi that were considered economically disadvantaged. That's how they became an Opportunity Zone. So under you know, even, and that's bipartisan. Opportunity Zones is staying, and even if with the change of administration, Opportunity Zones is staying. There is talk in bipartisan legislation next year to enhance that program to truly benefit the residents living within those opportunity zones. How do we improve? It's not so much about a windfall for an investor anymore, or not a windfall, but a profit line for an investor, that it's truly about creating a better quality of place within those zones. And so you're gonna see some changes in that go along right with smart growth, but truly, you know, HUD has something called Envision Centers that they do, where it's really a reach out kind of program, and HUD is very much a big part of Opportunity Zones. So I think we're going to see additional grants targeted towards those types of programs, not so much, you know, hey, you can defer your taxes on capital gains if you build this, but truly what impact will that make to the residents and the people within those zones? So I'm excited about that. I think that kind of answers your question. It's kind of along the same lines, but it's more than just a building. It's about what are we going to do for that community.
Okay, I think we have 3 final questions, and I think that's about all we'll have time for, unless somebody absolutely put it in chat if you need. Oh, Peggy Benales, you're waving your hand.
Yes, I would like to ask a question, but wait till everyone else does.
Okay. Catherine Oler.
Hi, sure. A quick question. Again, this kind of goes back to the workforce that is here. How much of the workforce is imported versus homegrown? And what is the priority that you put on that? And how, when you are visiting with getting businesses to locate here?
Sure, good. That's a great question. So a priority, we have to tout our local workforce, because there was a time prior to COVID, I think it's still the case, the workforce was the capital. That it wasn't about how your land was. It was, are there going to be people there with the skills to take the jobs? If I bring 600 jobs to your community, can I fill those jobs? Because remember, we had a record low unemployment coming into COVID, right? And so, you know, we were, that was kind of that point of doing that. We do kind of ask how many you're going to bring in and how many you're going to hire local, because we partner projects up immediately with Del Mar College and with TAMUCC and with Craft Training Center, because they kind of give us an indication we need them to have this skill. You know, this is what we're doing, so we need this. So we know that our local, we kind of show that we can not only have the workforce to do it, but we can train them for exactly what you need. So, and I can't give you an exact number. I think that's a great question, but usually what we'll see is some executives may come, but they're usually going to hire from that local workforce because it's just easier to do, because that way they're there on site. When I can tell you it's a great question, because when I go through a tour, I always ask, hey, where are you from? How did you get this job? And I meet a lot of folks that I was trained at Del Mar, or I graduated here and stayed here. So. But I can't quantify that, but I do ask that a lot. Is how did you get here? Did you move here, or were you already here? So
that's encouraging. That's good to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay, Teresa Klein had a follow-up.
Yeah, what are the challenges that keep companies from locating in the Coastal Bend?
Oh, what a good question. The challenges that keep companies from locating in the Coastal Bend. I say good question. I want to just think on that. The challenges with any company is that when we talk about site selection, when companies are looking for sites, it's never what they pick, they eliminate. So they may have 10 sites they're looking at across the country, and they just start eliminating. So it's not they pick 1 out of 10, is they go to 8, then they go to 6, then they go to 5, and they go to 2, and they'll go back and forth. So the challenges are, will it have the infrastructure I need? Can I fill the jobs that I'm going to have? Is the land available? What does it look like? You know, some folks, if it's manufacturing, they need rail. Some people need access to a port. Some people need, you know, when I was in Sugar Land, the challenges were, you know, we had to be certain certain distance between an international airport. So they're looking at all of these factors. So it's not necessarily a challenge that Coastal Bend needs to change, but it's knowing that sometimes, all things being equal, I always say when it comes to site selection, you're looking to locate a business somewhere. If I were to show you 5 houses and say, you know, you're shopping for a house and here's 5 houses, you pick the one you want based on what you want. I don't pick it for you. So I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but the challenge is it's not necessarily the challenges coming to the Coastal Bend is, in any time when a company is looking, will it have everything that I need to get up and running? That's what it's looking for. So that's what we're here to do, is to make that red carpet as red as we can, to say, here, let us show you. If you're a fit for our community, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that you thrive and grow here.
Okay, Colleen Johnson. Colleen, would you like to unmute?
Yes, I was just going to ask about the status of the project that had been known as MG, if you know where they're at in terms of
CC Polymers, correct? Is it CC Polymers?
Yeah. How close are they commissioning?
Let me get you a status update on that. How's that? Let me check. I don't have the latest on it, but I'd be happy to check, and I'll send it back with my carbon footprint on Steel Dynamics and what they're doing. How's that?
Okay, then, Peggy Benalis, I think we're ready for you, and that will probably be about the time for our last question.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Annette. Hello, Ms. Bryant. Thank you very much for taking the time this afternoon to be with us, and you've answered so many wonderful questions, and I really appreciate that. The question that I have is that I live in the Cal Island, Tolosa Midway area. I have noticed that on McKinsey, there is a lot of, not so much drilling, but there is a lot of pipeline that is being, I guess, laid out. And of course, on Calicote, there were retaining tanks that were put up right next door to a neighborhood just recently. Unfortunately, a lot of the neighbors over there were very dismayed because they did not even have any information that that was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And of course, in our area, I've now seen all these pipelines that are beginning to run through here, not really knowing why they're there, why these tanks are up there. I guess my question is, why isn't the community more informed about what's happening or coming out, especially in this area? We've got a lot of schools. We've got an area that's growing. Thank goodness we've got homes that are being built and sold at the same time. Mm-hmm. But again, my question is about making sure the community knows what's coming in and what it's going to be doing and what's going to be built here and why the pipelines are running through all this wonderful farmland that we used to have. Mm-hmm. So it's really about communication, you know, getting that more communication. Because even the former county commissioner said she didn't know what's going on. And it's very hard for me to believe, because when I was in that office, I knew what was going on and tried to be on top of it. Mm-hmm. So again, it's just about communication, a lot of communication in this area.
I know exactly what you're talking about. And I was in those meetings, those very difficult meetings that company had. I probably saw you there. Were you there?
No, thank you.
And I was at the same boat, you know, because there was a fractionator project on that part, that site that folks were well aware of, but unaware of a crude project on that site, because it didn't require anything other than, you know, it wasn't anything that would have come through us. That's not an excuse. It was just one of those that we all kind of did that. Hey, how did, you know, what's going on here? I can tell you, and I think it's important for everybody to know, when I say I work with existing industry, I work with existing industry on behalf of my community, but I sit there to support industry. And so I immediately contacted them, and they sat in a room and answered some pretty tough questions, and that company was reaching out to those residents. But I agree with you, that communication piece is really, really important. Really? With the example though, if you think back, and I know this is San Patricio County, when Steel Dynamics was considering Sinton, they came and did some public input. They came and did an open house to say, this is what we're thinking of doing. And they weren't even the chosen site yet. So, and I think that that's a really important habit to kind of lay down with our companies, is that they came out and had, I think, 200 people show up, and you could ask any question you wanted, and here's the company. And I think everybody left there like, please come to Sinton, Texas. But I think more of that. I hear you, and I agree that that those continual kind of public input needs to happen, because I come from a public sector background. You know, that's what I do, is transparency and openness, and I choose to tell the truth because it's easier to remember, is what I say. And so, you know, but I also want to speak to what I know. And so I hear you, and I will take that message back as well. But I do know going forward that I think Steel Dynamics has demonstrated, and even Cheniere, when they were getting ready to start up their program, you know, they were doing a lot of community open houses. Here's the process we're doing, and here's what the flare is going to look like. And they kept that thing. So they really established as well. And I think you'll see the same happening with GCGV. They're getting ready to kind of come out and say, this is what you're going to start seeing. And now that we're moving construction along, so they're trying to make sure that the community is aware. But I agree with you completely. And it makes what I found is people just want to know. You know, and once you know, but it's the not knowing and the not having access, I think, is a challenge. But I don't think it was a lack of access. I just think it was one of those that we were all focused here and unaware, you know.
Yeah, and again, I think that's the main thing, because there are changes that are going on over here, and we just need to be made aware of that, because whatever affects us here in this area is going to eventually affect everyone everywhere in Corpus and North County.
Absolutely.
So we really need to be on top of that. And I appreciate that if you would definitely look to that, that would be perfect. Okay.
You know, I was in Joplin with a tornado. I had to go sit in homes, and I know we're running short of time, but I had to sit in homes where we're thinking about a big commercial development, and these folks have rebuilt their homes. It tears you up, but we weren't going to do anything without them knowing and getting their buy-in, and it worked out. So yeah, I hear you.
That's all I'm asking about. You need to have that buy-in from the community.
Yeah,
appreciate it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, one more question popped up, but I wanted to check with Ms. Bryant and Ann Stewart. Is there any other business that needs to be conducted before we shut down?
Not today. Thank you.
Okay, then Ms. Bryant, do you have time for one more question?
Sure, you guys are tough, but as long as it's an easy one, my gosh, I'm exhausted.
This is from, and this will be the last question, from Sally Ferris. Sally, you need to unmute. Okay, go ahead.
I think you've already you've answered all my questions. Thank you.
You had put in one, said, does our lack of full air service play a role in keeping some industries away?
Oh, thank you for picking up on that. And now, thank you.
I'm grateful we have the airport. I'm grateful we have many flights from the airport. There are two lines of thought. It depends on what kind. I don't think it keeps industry away, but it can be a challenge for like corporate offices. So like I said, I came from Sugar Land, Texas, where we were equidistant between two international airports. And so many times in those RFPs that will come out for a corporate relocation, they'll say, we need to be able to get direct flights to whatever. And so now I haven't answered any RFPs here because Tommy usually handles those, but I can tell you that you know, I'm grateful we have what we have. And it's a great airport. It has lots of different lines to fly, because I've been in a market in Joplin, Missouri. We had one airline, American, and it only flew to Dallas. That's it. And it just added a flight to Chicago. So that was a challenge when you're like, you know, and it's, I could tell what time it was by the direction the plane was landing. That's 8:30, it's 3:30, that's 8 o'clock, you know. So it's a roundabout answer. It depends on what kind of industry, but it's still not a hindrance. And I think right now you're going to see a challenge because there's so much remote work happening anyway, that post-COVID we'll see. I don't know if it'll be a really big indicator.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Bryant. This has been a thoroughly
I'm exhausted. You guys are exhausted.
You're welcome.
My gosh.
The chat is full of people grateful to you for speaking with us today and being so kind to stick around and asking so many questions. And the one question that I said, email to me.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a connection going with Julie Rogers, so just go ahead and email that to her, and she can forward it to Sandra for the member blast.
You got it.
Okay.
You got it. I'll do my homework.
Anne, do you have anything to add to close the meeting?
Just a very happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Thank you so much for your service and your contributions to our community and making it a better place for everyone. So thank you again for being here. And thank you, Ms. Bryant, very much for representing the city so well.
Okay.
That's it, no.
All right. I think you are dismissed. Thank you for coming. Happy holidays.
Thank you. I'll stay in touch.
Linda Snyder? Excuse me. Can you stay with me a minute, Linda? There you are.
Hi.
Okay. I was going to ask, were you the one that volunteered to take minutes in Liz's place? Was that you?
Nope.
No. Okay. Somebody
It was
did.
Julie.
It was
Annelle.
Julie?
It was
Okay.
Julie Rogers.
Okay.
I did take some notes, but I wasn't thinking in terms of like for.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to check. I thought it was you, but I will check with Julie and see if she was able to do that.
If she didn't, I probably have enough notes I could.
I have. I've got
Great. We got Annelle and Linda, we got a message from Liz that she was all set and could do the minutes today. And so I released Julie from that responsibility when I sent the message to you. Well, thank you for, doing this, but Liz said she could do it.
Perfect.
Then I got a late, I got a late text or email from her that she had at a doctor's appointment come up that she didn't know about. So.
Oh, well, I didn't get that one. So
I've got a recording and I have a transcript. So.
Well, you're more up to date than I am. I didn't see that.
We'll take that.
Use whatever Linda stops, I'm sure.
Well, so you